ladies and gentlemen, I know that you were all expecting live reactions tonight, and I would like to apologize because that just straight up did not work out. We tried to do live reactions. We were getting constant hiccups, constant lag, constant being unable to keep in sync with each other on the network. When we realized that the network wasn't going to work out, we tried other resources to try and watch this show, and literally nothing was working. So at the end of the day, we just kind of gave up on trying to record live reactions. And when we finally did end up finding a relatively consistent way to watch this show, it was already after halfway through the show. So rather than doing live reactions, I proposed to John that we just review the show like we would any other episode of Raw. And we'll actually do another Raw review tomorrow night, but I just wanted to kind of let you guys know what our thoughts on this show were, so that we didn't end up going 2 hours for our Raw review tonight tomorrow night, because we would also have to talk about SummerSlam. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the first episode of a pay-per-view TWitWoW in years.
Yeah, guys, brought to you by Technical Difficulty, our SummerSlam 2015 review. And just to kind of get overall thoughts on the show, Ashton, what did you think of it, man?
Let me just put it this way, John. The WWE is better than anybody else in the wrestling business at one thing, and that's putting on great matches with the most unreasonably idiotic finishes I've ever seen.
Yeah, here's my thoughts on this show, right? Because I know you and I came into this very underwhelmed, and I think that only exacerbated our technical difficulties, because you and I were just like, oh my god, why? I felt like the stuff that was pretty meh, it panned out that way. But the stuff that was good was really freaking good. And even some things that I thought were going to be, a bore or a snooze fest, they kind of surprised me a little bit. So I'm not totally hating on the show. I do agree with you, though, about the idiotic finishes. Some of the ways these matches ended were quite perplexing to me. But yeah, this SummerSlam wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. So, not too bad, I guess.
And I'm also going to say, whoever was in charge of putting together the structure of this card probably shouldn't be given that responsibility ever again.
Yes, the structure of this card was so confusing to me. Just so confusing.
There are a lot of ways to put together a wrestling card. This was about the worst way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, you look at all the ways to do it, and the way that it was done here was completely antithetical to all of those ways.
Yeah, like normally, what I think the WWE typically goes for is kind of a picket fence style, where you have your peaks at the beginning and the end of the show, and then one kind of smaller peak in the middle with everything else kind of in between.
Right.
But this was like, and this wasn't even an NXT style card where you start with the least important match and build up to the most important match, and each successive match is more and more important. This wasn't anything like that either.
Right. This was just all over the lot, man.
It was really just ridiculous. And I feel like even if they just would have kind of rearranged the card a little bit, it would have made the show as a whole better, because there was just some like Owen Cesaro, I just couldn't get into it. I wanted to like that match. That was the match I was looking the most forward to. And yet coming away from the show, I wouldn't even put it in my top 2 or 3 matches, to be honest.
Well, see, that's the problem when you have it follow Cena Rollins, who killed it tonight, and we'll get in a little bit into that a little bit later. But yeah, just there was really no established flow of this card.
And even that being said, though, John, Rollins Cena was a great match, but even that being said, the match was really screwy. And even that being said, I still think that if you look at the 6 combined hours of pay-per-view content that we've watched over the last 24 hours, the best match between both cards was Bayley versus Sasha Banks.
Oh my goodness, yes. Everybody and their mother is raving about that match, and it's deserved. That match has been the talk of every wrestling fan I've encountered. Whether you want to look at social media or just review sites, like I frequent the AAV Club, that match got so much love everywhere. And I'd say the only comparable match for me on the SummerSlam card tonight, again, was Cena Rollins. But to your point, again, it had the screwiest of finishes that I'm wondering, where they go from here.
Granted, I love the result, but that doesn't make the finish any dumber. Or any less dumb, I should say.
Right. I mean, it doesn't make it any less perplexing. And not only that, I think you've created, Bob, in a really good way, I think in a lot of ways, this whole, intrigue of, well, what are you going to do now? Because we had a definitive winner emerge, guys. I mean, that's the thing. And just really, really crazy stuff tonight. But I guess, do you have anything else you want to say, man?
Well, I think as far as my scale that I use, the search it, skip it, buy it thing, I didn't ever think that I would say this about SummerSlam, but this was a skippable show.
Yeah,
There
it
was
really
really
was.
nothing on this show. I mean, if you can, I guess, go out of your way to see if you can find Rollins Cena, but I'm sure they're going to show highlights of it on Raw.
And see, that's my thing. I think because of that one match, and I'll be honest, I like the work put into Brock Taker, but that finish just again took me
Like,
out of it. I'd give this.
completely. Like, here's the thing, John, and then I'm not saying this from my personal experience just because I can't, because I wasn't actually at this show. But what I
Right.
can tell you is that basically the SummerSlam's main event this year ended with the crowd being dead silent.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
And especially because they were so receptive to this match, in the preceding moments and everything, like the whole match
During the match
preceding the finish.
itself, yeah.
Yeah. And the finish just
But the
killed
ending
the
was
momentum.
like, yeah, the ending was so convoluted that the crowd just didn't know what to do.
I never thought I'd say this because you and I are generally positive people and about a SummerSlam no less. But this has got to be one of the worst pay-per-views you and I have reviewed as a whole, from
Oh
like
yeah,
flow to our matches and just like I
and
would
I mean,
give this.
it was made even worse by the personal sort of experience of us not being able to do live reactions because of the freaking network crapping out on us.
Oh yeah, that completely exacerbated our annoyance, and everything else with this card. I would give this, using your rating scale because I love it, probably the weakest conceivable surgeon. And again, it only boils down to one match, Cena Rollins, and to your point, they're going to show highlights anyway. So ultimately, I'd have to co-sign to your rating. This was a skippable show, and just yeah, man, I'm sorry. Like I would watch Takeover Brooklyn again over just watching this SummerSlam once. Is what it comes down to for me.
Yeah,
That's the best way I can really articulate it.
yeah, I agree too. Because the thing with Takeover Brooklyn is it's only 2 hours too. So even if I mean, if you wanted to, you could watch two of those before. Well, I guess not because that was like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and this was like 3 hours and 45 minutes. So it's not exactly two, but you get the point.
Ashton, I got to be honest with you too. I felt like the length of this. I know they were really
Was
building up. Like it's gonna be.
so unnecessary.
It was,
They
dude.
started the show with a 10-minute promo, and then they went into a 5-minute hype package for SummerSlam, and there were like actual advertisements during the show. Like, you have my money, you have my $9.99. I paid my money to get the network, and you're still trying to advertise freaking razors to me. Are you kidding me right now?
I mean, I'm gonna level with everybody, and I know this is probably gonna make me look bad, but I'm just being honest. That there were some points in the show I checked out, like not completely, because I knew we were gonna be doing this review. But yeah, like I was looking at other stuff,
Well, there
checking.
were multiple times throughout the show that I didn't have any choice but to check out because the streams just straight up weren't working. Whether it was
Yeah,
the
dude.
WWE
Yeah.
network or otherwise, it doesn't matter. I couldn't find a way to watch this. And that's the worst part too, is that I give WWE my $9.99 a month and they still insist on the network. I guess they don't insist on it, but the network insists on not working when we need it to the most.
Yeah, and that's always been, a big infuriation for us. And you especially had a tough go at it tonight.
Well, yeah,
Um,
my computer was really acting up to a lot tonight too, so that didn't help.
I mean, Ziggler Rusev's finish was completely stupid. Like, why not just have, and I thought that's what was going to happen. Why not have one of them? I wouldn't care if it was, Ziggler being the face or Rusev being the heel. You see Lana and Summer Rae fight on the outside. Maybe that just opens the door for, one of the guys to get a win on the other. Instead, we get a double count out. Now, I get why they did it because you want some kind of excuse, some kind of foundation to get a rematch. I just don't think that was the best avenue to take.
It's funny
Um,
too because if you're purely looking at results, just looking at results, this was a good show.
yeah, yeah.
If
From a
you're
results,
only
yeah.
looking like if your only exposure to this show was going on Reddit or a dirt sheet or the WWE website and seeing the results of each match, you're probably really happy about this show.
What's funny, Ashton, is that when you look at another matchup, the trios women's matchup, Becky Lynch gets the winning pin for Team PCB, which I kind of made me smile because I think that'll make your prediction come true of a fatal four way. But she pinned Brie Bella. I would have really liked your prediction to
Nikki.
pan out
Yeah.
at her, yeah, either pin Nikki or make her submit. You know,
Yep.
I felt like that would have made
And that's
so
another
much.
thing too. Where in the world did like now all of a sudden the pump handle suplex is a finisher?
Yeah, I didn't get that at all.
I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like didn't Roman Reigns hit that like 3 times to Luke Harper in their match?
Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, like certain matches, and again, the cards all just had no really consistent flow to
Yeah.
me at all. And let me tell you something here. To me, quite a few of the heels were MVPs in their matches, like the tag team title matchup. New Day, obviously MVPs. So
Yeah.
happy they regained the gold tonight. That was a fun
Do
match.
you just want to kind of go down this card in order and talk about each match individually?
Yeah, we might as well give it some semblance of structure. So let's go
Okay,
down the card.
well, I mean, our structure is infinitely better than the WWE's because they decided to open this freaking card with Sheamus versus Randy Orton.
Yeah, I think they thought they hit magic in Battleground. They didn't take into account that it was in Orton's hometown.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, because again, I know a lot of people say Jim Ross is out of touch nowadays, and I think in a lot of ways he is. But I think one of the best things he ever said was, you know, the opening match and the main event match are the two of the most important matches on a pay per view card. The opening match being you got to warm the crowd up, you got to get them into it.
They
And
should have opened this entire thing with the tag match because that wasn't a match that had like a huge amount of importance on it. It's not like, oh my god, like this match needs to be in a prestigious spot. It needs to go on in the second half of this show, but it was still one of the top 2 or 3 most exciting matches on this card.
yeah, either the tag title match or for me, even Cesaro Owens should have opened the show.
See, and I
Because
don't know. I mean, maybe they would have worked differently if they were jerking the curtain, and that would make a much bigger point. But if you would just kind of copy and paste the match that they had in the semi-main into the first spot on this show, I think it wouldn't have been much better than Sheamus Orton.
well, see,
Because just looking at it at face value, like as they were, those matches were actually I would rate them very similarly.
and see, the funny thing is, I wonder if you know, because you even said like you had a hard time getting into it because it followed, you know, Rollins Cena. So I feel like the structure of this card didn't
Well,
help him
no,
at
but that's the
all.
thing though, John. It's not necessarily that I struggle to get into it because of that. I just struggle to get into it. Period. Now, the
Right.
reason why is up for debate. It could be because it was after Rollins Cena, but I think that it really just comes down to this match didn't have any kind of importance to it, and these guys maybe don't have that much chemistry.
Maybe, but I mean, the point here is that you and I both agree that Orton and Sheamus, given the responsibility of an opener, should not have been entrusted with this,
Right. Yeah.
which is weird to say because I said multiple times when you and I were watching this match that you know we like both guys, and it's just so weird that you know they just don't work well with each other.
Yeah.
You know, because
And yet the
our issue.
WWE insists on putting them with each other. And that's another thing. Like, we were trying to record live reactions, and I even said on live reactions, I want the 2 matches that you and I have been talking about here for the last couple of minutes to switch partners. I want Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton, and I want to see Sheamus Cesaro again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this Sheamus working with a babyface Cesaro that's actually able to go out there and do the work, I feel like they'd have clinics. Same thing with Orton Owens. You know, they could really put in the work and put on some great matches. This match here, you know, it was harmless. I wouldn't even really say it was bad, but again, it's like you can't get invested. I was just looking for the final few minutes, and Sheamus did get his win back as I predicted. And you know he does roll on, but you know the question remains, you know, where does Orton go from here? Maybe he does feud with Owens because Owens, you know, did win his match tonight.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
but Orton didn't.
yeah, but see, maybe Owens can mock Orton for that or look down at him for that. Maybe that could lead to a confrontation. You know, oftentimes when a babyface comes up on a losing end, a heel can interrupt him that did win their match at a pay per view, and then you can start the next program. Maybe Owens will do that with Orton. Who knows?
I don't know.
Um, you know, I don't know where Sheamus goes from here either, though. That's
Cash
the
in.
thing. Cash in, yeah, that's the only thing he could really, I can think for him to do. And that's going to be an interesting situation in itself, given the
Well, and that would
circumstances.
work out perfectly given the result of the Rollins Cena match too.
Absolutely. But yeah, I really have nothing else to say about Orton Sheamus except, you know, Sheamus got his win back, and now we'll see what he moves on to next.
Yeah, and I feel like we've kind of already talked at length about the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Championship match too, because really, what else is there to say other than New Day MVPs?
Yeah, they were so good in this match.
And even Xavier on the outside was just amazing.
Oh yeah, and one thing I do have to give him credit for too. I know we kind of did an umbrella with New Day MVPs, but the promo they cut at the beginning,
Was great.
doing Empire State of Mind, but in the rendition of New Day, just fantastic, so good. In fact, the fans even applauded because
I'm
yeah,
gonna
they
have
have
to
some.
try and go back and watch that again because that was one of those instances where my stream was cutting in and out and I didn't get to catch the whole thing.
I'm telling you guys, I say it a lot on TWitWows, and I know Ashton affixes his signature to it every single time. New Day is one of, if not the best act on the main roster right now.
Yeah, I just say the like I don't even
Yeah.
question it. It's just
Be-
they're the best.
Between their Fallout segments and when they're actually afforded mic time, they capitalize on every moment they're given as a team should. And you know what? Honestly, even though I still stand by my sentiment that they've grown past the tag titles, they certainly deserve them. So here's to hoping, Ashton, that what you said in preview predictions comes to pass. We get them versus an Enzo and Cass in a feud because that'll be amazing.
Yeah, they're still at the Barclays Center tomorrow night, from what I understand. So that's the last chance, really, for Enzo and Cass to blow the freaking roof off the building.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see.
All right, up next, then we had Ziggler and Rusev, and I think this was the match that was literally the worst for me. I literally maybe caught the first like minute and a half of this match and the last 30 seconds of the post match brawl, but that was it. My yeah, the network was being really terrible for me during this.
Yeah, I was kind of in and out as well, but from what I saw, they did have a good match. There was one moment where Rusev actually had the accolade on Ziggler, and Rusev broke it on his own power because he saw Lana and Summer Rae fighting on the outside. That was a chain of events that just led to utter chaos. The women taking each other out, and then Ziggler super kicking Rusev, and he was leaning against the announce table, and then of course both guys couldn't beat the count. Again, I know why they did it. You want to find some kind of foundation to extend the feud, but you
But
can ask.
why? Why do you want to extend this feud, WWE? What about this feud makes you think it's working?
Because I think in their minds, speaking in their minds, they want the payoff to go to Lana. I'm still thinking we're going to get an intergender tag match. It's just going to be so weird on a Night of Champions card. It's not unprecedented to have a non-championship match on that pay-per-view,
Yeah.
but it's just going to be weird. And I mean, you can ask Ashton, guys. I told him multiple times when we were trying to record live reactions, like I just feel like Rusev's above this. I have grown to be such a big fan of Rusev this year. I think you could call me a Rusev mark at this point. I just love the guy. You were really commending him for his facial expressions from what you did see of the match,
Yeah.
and he's got that charisma in his own way. I think he can work a mic when he has to. In ring, if he didn't prove himself to everybody in that triple threat, then he's not going to prove himself to you at all, and he's just going to move on to the next crowd, I guess, to the next audience, so to speak.
Yeah.
I just feel like this guy is the complete package. In fact, I'll tell you exactly what I told Ashton. I think one of the most exciting prospects about Seth Rollins inevitably turning face, because it's going to happen for him eventually. I just don't know when.
I thought that that's what
Um,
happened tonight, isn't it?
well, yeah, in front of this crowd, certainly. Um, one of the best things about a Rollins face turn is a potential feud with Rusev, because I think those two guys could have some very interesting matches together. Yeah, Rusev's stock, his profile as a whole, has been raised exponentially for me this year, and I just really don't want him in this program anymore. And still with Ziggler, I'm just feeling that disconnect anymore. I mean, again, this was another harmless matchup, but I really don't want to see this feud continue.
Yeah, I'm completely on the same page as you. Let's talk about the next match then. Actually, a pretty entertaining match here. Neville and Stephen Amell versus Stardust and King Barrett, and this was kind of the opposite, where I pretty much saw this entire match and you weren't able to.
Yeah, yeah, I struggled a little bit, but what I did see though, I like that Stephen Amell actually came in and he took some bumps. I mean, one thing that kind of surprised me, he took Barrett's knees to the face and then the boot to the outside.
I think
Uh,
my favorite part about this match is the fact that it didn't necessarily feel like there was a celebrity involved. It just felt like a normal match. Stardust and Bad News Barrett didn't have to change anything about their offenses, respectively, to kind of accommodate Stephen Amell being in there. Amell just kind of took stuff the way you would expect any regular wrestler to, and it was very smooth. I appreciate that. That's something that I don't think any other celebrity guest on WWE has ever been able to do before. Is basically be in a match and not make it feel unnatural.
yeah, it's very intriguing to me the finish because Neville pins Barrett. Now, I was really confident, given that Stardust was calling out Amell and stuff, that you'd give the celebrity the pin again, something that's not unprecedented. when you look at other matchups. But, that wasn't the case here. So I'm wondering because I mean, you knew my theory on preview predictions. I thought Amel was going to get the pin and that was going to send Stardust either towards just a downward spiral, even further down, or being beaten by a hero and the Green Arrow, quote unquote, saving the city, if you will, would make him have an epiphany of some kind and he'd shed the Stardust skin. But considering that these two guys weren't involved with each other for the finish,
Yeah.
I just have to wonder where Stardust goes from here now.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's just, I don't even know, man. I don't even know.
I don't even want to say that this match made, the wrong call because I'd feel like that would be, just me being more egoistic on my part, saying, oh, well, you didn't go with my thing, so you're wrong. No, it wasn't wrong. Just, it leaves a peculiar hole here in my mind for Stardust's whole story. Like, maybe he'll resolve it on Monday. I'm curious if he gives, like, a post kind of match promo after he's had time to think and everything, so we'll see.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't think this match was ever really meant to do anything particularly for Stardust. I think that he was just the guy that it made the most sense to introduce Stephen Amell with.
Right. Yeah.
This was more for publicity than, oh, let's give Stardust character progression.
Yeah.
So, all right, then next match was the Intercontinental Championship triple threat: Ryback, Miz, Big Show. What I thought was going to happen almost happened, and then it didn't. So we don't have no title change here. Ryback remains the Intercontinental Champion.
I gotta say, for me personally, Miz MVP in this match. I really enjoyed his heel work here. I love that he, played the role that he really came out and said he was going to play, and that's the guy trying to pick the bones, being the scavenger. I thought he did that part very well. And I think my favorite sequence in this match is when he tried pinning Ryback and Big Show over and over again, and he sold the desperation
That was
perfectly.
great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really have got to give Miz props. Like, he did his heel work in this match. And really, Ryback, too. If I was to go, well, I mean, he really was the only babyface in this thing. But he would be the runner-up because I just love him as Intercontinental Champion. The crowd was behind him because when he was winding up the meat hook, they did feed me more. And they popped for his shell shock on Big Show spot. That was great. And, yeah, I love how the finish, because I think it is going to pan out now. Big Show versus Ryback return match at Night of Champions, because Big Show knocks out Miz. Ryback does a meat hook to Big Show, like to the outside. He sends him over the ropes, and then Ryback just falls into the cover on the Miz. Doesn't do a shell shock or anything, just falls into the cover because he's still reeling from the knockout punch, and that's how he retains. So Big Show can be like, A, you never pinned me, and B, you only won because I did the heavy lifting. So, these two should have a good one-on-one match. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that. It should be. I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to say that I'm excited for it just because it's still Ryback and the Big Show. So whatever.
Oh, and also, I gotta say, Big Show. I think all three guys had a particular moment in this match, and Big Show's moment came when he averted a double suplex and he suplexed both guys, and then he pops back up and he goes, "I'm a giant!"
Yeah, that was great.
I was dying.
That
Great
was pretty
stuff.
good. Yeah, yeah, that was good. Now, to me, probably the second best match of the night, though, was Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper versus Reigns and Ambrose.
This was a fun tag match.
See, it's so funny because people and like even the crowd tonight was crapping all over Roman Reigns, and yet he's consistently putting on the best or second best match at every pay-per-view.
Dude, Roman Reigns I'm just going to use several because I don't have an exact number, but the last several pay-per-views has really come into his own. And, I think it's just the hate that comes, you know, I don't even really know how to articulate it. I think they know that eventually he's going to win the world title, and they're just getting the hate on early. They're being preemptive with it. But, I mean, he's going in there. He's working his ass off. He's having great matches. Dean really showed up, too. I mean, everybody really showed up in this thing.
Yeah, this
And
was everybody. This was like there was no one or two guys in this match that really stood out above the others. It was just a great effort from all four guys.
absolutely, Reigns and Ambrose win. You could argue that with all of our speculation, maybe this was a matchup that was kind of overthought a little bit, not by just
Yeah.
us, by a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things where WWE knew that everybody was predicting Ambrose to turn heels, so even if they were planning on doing that in the first place, they decided not to.
Yeah. So, they get the win, but that does beg the question, they each have a win apiece. Bray won at Battleground. Reigns, kind of wins here with the, Dean Ambrose by his side. So if this is going to be the long program that's been rumored, I wonder where we go from here. So again, a
Yeah,
lot of questions heading into Raw tomorrow. So
rightfully so. I mean, that's the thing too, is that like even though we're not necessarily happy with this show and the network was pissing us off and stuff, that's not enough for us to just decide to stop watching and be like, oh, this company sucks. I'm never watching again. They lost a fan tonight. I'm unsubscribing from the network. Like, no, this was just one really bad experience, kind of trapped in the middle of a bunch of better ones.
yeah, I mean, again, guys, we're living in an age where NXT, Lucha Underground, and New Japan, if you're a regular watcher of that, are a thing. And I feel like this SummerSlam was a pretty, again, like I'd say about a Raw, a pretty middle of the road pay-per-view, maybe even a bit worse than that. And
Yeah, like if we're going
yeah,
on a scale from 1 to 10, this was like a 3.5, maybe a 4.
right. Yeah, I would agree with that, but it certainly didn't help with the technical issues. But yeah, of course we're not gonna throw in the towel. I think you guys know better, about us than that by now. But yeah, I mean,
That being said though, one of the shining spots, other than this tag team match between the Wyatt Boys and the Shield Boys, was our next match, which is going to result in a statue being erected.
yes.
And it resulted on something very interesting happening on Reddit, but I won't talk about that here.
Yeah, and I know what you're referring to too. Seth Rollins versus John Cena, and let me just say this first and foremost before I get to my Seth Rollins break because it's coming.
Yeah.
John Cena, for all the shit that I can talk to him, and I'll readily embrace that I have, mainly his mic work. In terms of his in ring work, this has been one of his best years ever for me. And when I
I would
read
argue the best.
yeah. You know what? And when I read columnists say that John Cena right now, for them personally, is running away with, their superstar of the year, it's hard to argue the point. I really do want to go out of my way and praise Cena here. Like every time in a big match situation, when he needs to show up, he does. And I think, the big shame is I get if you don't like John Cena. I'm not his biggest fan, obviously, but I think you got to commend the guy when he shows up. And he did here because these two guys killed it. And speaking of showing up, I mean, Seth Rollins, from the ring attire right down to the stuff that he pulled off in this match, just really put the biggest smile on my face. These guys had a great outing. This is probably the closest they'll ever come to matching their SmackDown match. Did it surpass it? I'd actually have to go back to the SmackDown match and tell you after a rewatch because it's been so long. But yeah, this was a really great match from these two. I loved it, dude.
Yeah, this was really fun. And I mean, we'll look no further than the finish of this match. Screwy as it was, at the end of the day, I think it really just comes down to Jon Stewart being a hardcore Ric Flair mark.
Yeah, you heard that right, guys. We're not even playing around. Jon Stewart comes out with a steel chair, does the whole like, well, who am I gonna hit? What am I gonna do? And then he hits Cena in the gut with the chair.
And
I
then
don't know if he,
rather than trying to preserve John Cena's purity, he preserves the purity of Ric Flair's title championship. What's it called? A
the
record.
championship record. Yeah,
Yeah, like that's. I think that's hilarious too because now it's like, oh my God, was that a heel turn or a face turn from Jon Stewart? Did he turn heel by helping Seth Rollins win, or did he turn face by not letting John Cena take the record away from Rick?
well, I'll tell you something, Ashton. I think you just did, at least in my mind personally, the impossible because I was so confused given Jon Stewart and Seth Rollins' history. Like, why would you do that? But you just saying that Jon Stewart has come out and it's conveyed in his promos. It was conveyed when he was, hosting SummerSlam. He had an interaction with Heyman on this show. He is a legitimate wrestling fan. He's not
Yep.
phoning it in because of his celebrity. He knows his stuff. And by knowing his stuff, it would make sense that the wrestling fan in him would be like, John, I'm sorry, but the record. And then bam, chair in the gut. So I think you actually provided the
I think it
best
would be great
justification.
if Stewart would actually come out tomorrow night and be like, guys, I know you're not happy with me. I got a lot of angry tweets last night, but you need to understand, I love Ric Flair.
Right. And you know what? I would love it. I think you just gave the best out that WWE should capitalize on
Yeah.
for this justification because honestly, that makes me even less like scratching my head about the finish.
And
I'm
plus,
actually,
this match,
yeah.
I mean, I know that it probably wasn't, and they're never going to acknowledge it, But this match felt like such a double turn because like you have Rollins come out in the all white and he's flipping around like some kind of insane Jeff Hardy baby face, and John Cena whips out the figure four as if there's a possible way to be more of a heel than that. Like,
Yeah,
that was amazing.
they knew their audience. And you know what? The crazy thing is, for all the new stuff that Seth pulled out, the highlight of this match for me, I don't know why, maybe I just appreciated the imagery, was when he powered through. I think Cena tried doing a crossbody, and he did that whole power through AA that John Cena does.
Yes, that was
I
great.
love that spot.
Yeah.
Love that spot. And the crowd responded so well to it. Look, guys, you all know that I became a hardcore Seth Rollins mark at Rumble, with his triple threat with Cena Lesnar. I was elated. In fact, that would probably be the only reason I'm forlorn about us not being able to do live reactions because of technical issues, because I would have lost my shit.
Yeah.
And seeing him with both of those titles. Now, I gotta say, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but I'll say that everybody that I saw, Ashton, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to assume you as well, thought that this wasn't even going to have a finish. That, well, how are they going to answer, a guy having, both championships? But they're entrusting it with Rollins.
Yep.
I think this creates such interesting possibilities. And hey,
Until Sheamus cashes in and Rollins is only the U.S. champion, and we all realize exactly what the real playing field is right now.
well, yeah, and you know what though? It just goes to show that the profile of the U.S. Championship remains intact because
Yeah.
it goes from John Cena to the current world champion. Like, holy crap! And
Yeah.
you know what the really funny thing is to me, and it's just something that like it hasn't bugged me in a bad way. It's just been kind of amusing to me. The U.S. Championship was always a WCW thing. Like, the Intercontinental title was WWF's thing, and yet the U.S. title is the one with the higher profile right now by a significant margin to me.
Yep.
And Rollins breaks new ground. He's the first guy to ever do this. So he made history tonight. And you're right. You said at the start.
Yeah,
Of this
and
matchup,
if you weren't aware of that a month ago, he's let you know enough times in the last month that you would have been aware of it tonight when it happened.
in the last month, can you imagine Raw tonight when he's just playing it over a loudspeaker over and over again on a loop? We're going to be asking Paul Heyman to remind us who ended The Undertaker's streak when it's all over. Good God. Yeah, Rollins is going to have so much material to work with this. And you know
Yeah.
what the thing is? Yes, he did have Jon Stewart, so we can't say, oh, Rollins, didn't have any help. But he didn't have help from the Authority. I don't
Yeah.
think Rollins could have said that Stewart was going to come out there. He just took advantage of an opportunity that was presented to him, exactly like his mentor Triple H would have done. So, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, Rollins is a clean conscience. He went in there and he did business. So I loved it. And even Ashton did one of that Seth Rollins cackle for the victory, and just everything worked so perfectly.
He needs to cackle at least twice tomorrow.
Yes, he does for each championship.
That's right.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we were able to praise something, because this is about the last thing that we're going to be able to praise for the night. After this was the 3-on-3-on-3 Divas Elimination Tag Match. The first thing that happened was Brie Bella pinning Tamina, and then Becky Lynch pinning Brie Bella. So Team Bella, they were beaten down on Paige for quite a while, but then the hot tag happened, and yeah.
Yeah, wasn't a bad match. I did enjoy it. Obviously,
It's just so insulting when you put on this match immediately, literally the night after we saw the women's match last night.
that's just it. Like, I feel like when you have something that everybody again is raving about. I mean, you're talking about accolades from best women's match in WWE history to match of the year candidate to all this stuff with Bayley and Sasha Banks to this trios matchup. And no fault to the women, but again, I felt like just the flow and everything, like Becky Lynch pinning Brie Bella. I get that it gets PCB the win, and that probably makes them feel good. But again, like when you look at Ashton's whole booking scenario of, oh, you get Becky Lynch the win over Nikki, and then you create a fatal four-way for Night of Champions. Now, they could potentially correct this if they have Nikki Bella versus Becky Lynch tomorrow night on
Yeah.
Raw. But I doubt that's going to happen.
You know what this probably was, though? This is probably their way of giving Becky Lynch the win back, because Brie pinned her on SmackDown.
And that's a great point. That's certainly a great point. I think, bringing that into account, I could forgive this a little bit, but
I mean, granted, yeah, Brie got the tights, so it didn't really even count as something that would like hurt Nikki or hurt Becky Lynch's sort of reputation or anything like that. But yeah, I think that was the point of this, which is really sad because they're literally using a pay-per-view to continue a story that started on SmackDown.
I mean, Nikki Bella had nothing to lose here. I don't understand why she couldn't have, taken the loss here to really like punctuate this matchup for PCB, particularly again Becky Lynch. It's not like the championship was going to change hands.
Yep.
But not a bad match. I just think again these women were disadvantaged when really, even though it was 24 hours removed, you had to follow Sasha Bailey because it
Yep.
wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen.
That's right. That's right. Do you really have anything else to say about this though?
No, I do not.
Next was Owen Cesaro, and yet another match that I really just didn't get into.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I guess.
And that's the thing too, is like I acknowledge that it was a good match. I just couldn't get into it personally.
Right. And I certainly couldn't blame. And again, I feel like that is owed more to the structure of the card than anything because I liked how these two guys worked together.
Yeah, like if I had to rate this, it would be like a 3.5-star match.
Right. Like really, really good stuff from these guys.
Like I would say this would be 3.5, and then like Sheamus Orton would have also been 3.5.
And see, yeah, like you said, you personally would have put the matches on the same scale. I we had really bad technical issues at the start for Sheamus Orton, so I really can't say because every time I thought that this match was going to establish a flow, it was cut off outside of their control. Yeah. So it was hard for me to get into it. This matchup, though, because I was able to watch it bell to bell, I really enjoyed it. I liked what both guys did. The finishing sequence, a very dominant win by Owens. It makes me wonder, about that whole big Cesaro push. Unless maybe he's going to get a big win upcoming. I don't know. But yeah, he gets like that fisherman buster off the top rope, and then he doesn't even go for the pin there. He just goes straight into the pop-up powerbomb. He gets it, and he gets the win. Now, we did predict Owens getting the win, and I guess it's appropriate because he lost the ladder match the night prior at TakeOver Brooklyn, so he's got some of that momentum back. Here's to hoping he goes into a program with Orton now. Where Cesaro goes from here, I don't know, because that was as definitive a win as you get. Yeah. It's not like Owens cheated or even did something like really underhanded, like a powerbomb on the apron. No, he beat Cesaro. Cesaro was trying to go for a move on the top rope. Owens kind of pushed him off. Cesaro got straddled on the top rope, which you can't even say was an intentional design of Owens, and even if it was, it's not illegal. Right. And, it capitalizes on it. So, to me, Cesaro has no gripe, and he's got to move on. I just don't know what he's going to move on to.
Yeah, that's hopefully Sheamus, or even bigger and better things. Maybe he goes after Cena for the number one contendership.
Maybe.
Because you've got to think that right now Cena is at least the number one contender for the U.S. title.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he would want to, take a return match, which is
right.
funny. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right, now we get to the main event, and this match was decent. This wasn't a bad match until the finish. And the finish itself, I get what they were going for. Their hands were basically tied, and I even told you this, John. I told you this. I told the world this. Anybody that would listen to me, this match was a lose-lose-lose situation. There was no way for anyone to win this match in a way that would come out better than it was before. And that's pretty much what the WWE confessed to realizing themselves with the way they booked the ending of this match.
Yeah, see, my feelings on this match are very, I don't want to say complicated, but they're all over the lot. A lot like this card, actually. Because I appreciated the work of both guys. The crowd certainly did, which I think helped. The crowd gave major ups to these guys. I like the Taker, some of the spots he took at his, an F5 through an announce table and then beating the count. That to me was a genuinely dramatic moment. What was funny is up until the final few minutes, it seemed like Lesnar, at least to me, Ashton, was playing more the heel and Taker the babyface. Because Taker was just getting his ass beat, and Lesnar was reveling in it. He was even bleeding, kind of reveling in the, the sight and the taste of his own blood. And, I was actually even starting to get into it. But then you get the whole fake out with the Kimura, the timekeeper, preemptively ringing the bell, but, Charles Robinson's like, no, I tell you when to ring it. Heyman's getting all excited, like he tapped out. Lesnar capitalizes, he goes for the low blow, which has been a central theme, so continuity for the win, I guess. But then he goes right back into the Hell's Gate, and I got to be honest, I did like the imagery of Brock Lesnar flipping Taker off before he passes out, showing that defiance.
And of course, it was also nice that Lesnar didn't tap out.
Yeah.
The
But,
Undertaker did, Lesnar didn't.
I feel like I would have appreciated because look, I mean, Rollins Cena did the same thing, so maybe he didn't want repetition, but I forgave them for that. I guess mainly because I was so into the matchup and I was thinking, oh my God, is Rollins actually going to do this? But I would have preferred, I'll always prefer ref bumps over fake outs. I'll put it to you that way. I hate when they do that fake out crap, when they preemptively like ring the bell or something, but then, oh wait, no, decision wasn't reached. We got to throw it out and
You know
restart. It's
what?
like,
You know what the dumbest part about this is, though?
what's that?
Well, I mean, the whole thing itself was really dumb, but just really looking at it, I don't think it would be possible for them to insult our intelligence more than they did. Because, first of all, no timekeeper has ever rung a bell prematurely without the ref telling them to before.
Right.
There have been multiple instances, and even if you want to look at tonight, in the Rollins Cena match, Cena had Rollins beat. The ref wasn't there to count it. Why didn't the timekeeper ring the bell there?
Yeah. Great point.
And second of all, the referee didn't tell the timekeeper to ring the bell because he couldn't see the tap out. How in the blue hell did the timekeeper see the tap out?
I mean, I think commentary's justification was, I guess the timekeeper was at a better angle than the
But
referee.
he wasn't. Like, if you look at the angle that the Undertaker tapped out, his back was to the timekeeper and Lesnar's back was to the referee. So they were both blocking off the sight of both of those guys.
Could it be that Heyman may have exclaimed something and then the timekeeper did it that way? But I mean, they didn't even
So
say that.
then,
They said that
well,
timekeeper.
and even then, so now are we going to just let managers tell the timekeeper who wins matches?
Yeah, yeah. So again, another corner, and this is just. I don't want to say horrendous, but yeah,
No,
it's
it
pretty
was
horrendous.
horrendous.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
the way that this main event was booked was horrendous. There's no euphemism that is effective enough to describe how bad this was. So yeah, it was horrendous.
I almost would have preferred the Kane interference that I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Sting, anything
Yeah, I mean, because at least that, even if you wanted to let out a groan, um, would have been more straightforward.
would have made sense.
Yeah, it would have made sense. It wouldn't have been nearly as convoluted. And now this just confirms everybody's worst fears. We're doing this again at Mania 32.
Probably.
Good freaking God. What a waste of both guys.
Yep.
Really. I mean, for as much as I enjoyed this matchup, and let me say this too, just to give a last bit of praise to this matchup, for me personally, if you compared this solely to their WrestleMania 30 matchup, this was better, even screwy finish aside, because I will appreciate the work both guys did, but I don't want to see this for a third time. I didn't even want to see it for a second time. Um, I stand by what I said in preview predictions. This is a waste of both guys, especially a waste of Brock Lesnar when
Yeah.
we've only got him for 3 years. And no offense to the Undertaker, but I'm gonna say it: Brock Lesnar's more of an attraction than the Undertaker to me long term. He is more of an attraction, and this is just expending him in the worst possible way. So Taker gets the win. Heyman is just losing his shit after the match. He goes and he rings the bell over and over and over and over and over again. Then he gets on the mic and he says, no, 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 and pretty much declares that, yeah, Brock Lesnar won the matchup, and commentary kind of reaffirmed that when you look at the
Yep.
replay. So,
At the end of the day, this show was below average. I'll say that. I won't say mediocre because even that feels extreme. It was below average though, and the one thing that it did do that I think was very effective was make me more intrigued for Raw tomorrow night.
I mean, guys, here's the thing. I read a report, I think, like a few days before, well, both SummerSlam and TakeOver, that something huge was rumored for Raw. Now, if it turns out to be some kind of guest or some kind of surprise appearance, I'm going to be a bit.
WWE 2K16 roster announcement, John.
Yeah. But I mean, they've described something, nothing more than that. Just it's a huge thing, and it's quite apropos given that it's going to be our last Raw 12-hour review,
Of
before
the
our hiatus. Yeah, and I'm hoping something big goes down. I'm assuming it's probably going to involve either Brock Lesnar and Undertaker, that story, or Seth Rollins and John Cena, that story. But we shall see, and hopefully it takes some of the bad taste out of my mouth that I experienced in this SummerSlam. Again, the best mouthwash to me would be going and watching Takeover Brooklyn again. But yeah, I agree with Ashton. This is a below average show for me.
yeah. I I'm looking forward to Raw, but that doesn't make this show itself any better.
Right. I mean,
So,
this, yeah.
all right, guys. We do apologize again for not being able to do live reactions. It was, again, technology fails us yet again. As if the G1 climax wasn't bad enough. Now this.
I'm thinking you and me team up against, I don't know, whatever computer companies or whatever for a tag match at WrestleMania 32. This technology needs to be put in its place. It's getting
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. My computer's an Acer. What's your computer?
Acer, I think mine is. Yeah, mine's an Acer too. Holy crap.
Well, handicap match, us against
Yeah.
Acer.
Yeah, let's beat the crap out of it.
What kind of internet do you have, John? Do you have Comcast?
I have actually TDS. I think it's a more local internet company for our area.
Oh, okay. Well,
You have
we'll do a
Comcast?
tag team. We'll be in a 2-on-4 tag team match against Acer, my internet service provider, your internet service provider, and the WWE network.
Deal. I am so ready.
All right, guys. We're done. We're gonna call this a wrap, and we'll see you all for our Monday Night Raw review tomorrow, and it'll be our last Raw review of the year. But don't get it twisted, folks. It won't be our last TWitWoW of the year. We're still going to be reviewing NXTs, and when we can, we will continue reviewing ROH. It's just really weird to access and just kind of an awkward situation with ROH. But whenever Lucha Underground comes back, we'll be doing that too. So hopefully that's in October and not January. We'll see you all for Raw tomorrow night.